All right, everyone. Welcome back to the second session of the brainstorming session on the topic of how to solve the unemployment crisis in India. So I'm going to quickly share my screen and I'll walk us through the previous session that we had. So I hope you guys can see my screen. And so the topic is basically how to solve the unemployment crisis in India. And for those of you for whom this is the first time where you're joining this brainstorming session, I'll just give you a brief context as to what this whole point of this session is. So, as part of the debate club, our community is geared towards like creating an environment where everybody from various intellectual perspectives can come and have a meaningful discourse. And we have every Saturday 11 a.m. we have these debate sessions where we take a topic of contentious topic and then we represent each other's points of view. But the brainstorming session, these are conducted at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. And what we do here is basically have a constructive dialogue on solving a certain problem. So for the brainstorming sessions, the topic is often an open-ended question, seeking a solution. So for example, this one, like how to solve the unemployment crisis in India. There is no agree, disagree, or for and against stance on this topic. It is more of an open-ended question where we're trying to arrive at a solution using brainstorming as a tool. Right? So, and each topic, we try to spend like 4 sessions where we go through various aspects of the problem. First, the first session of this problem statement was something that we conducted merely as like a, like a broad discussion around like the unemployment crisis and figuring out like what's the reason for high unemployment. And I've noted down the points that we recorded from the previous session. And also we've discussed some measures as to what can be done. And, in this session, we're going to basically talk about like, narrowing down some of these approaches and, like figuring out like a certain strategy that will be most effective. And then in the next session, we'll expand on that and try to, figure out like a enforceable solution. And we'll basically create a proposal for that at the end of it. So with that established, let's go over the points we discussed last time. I think one of the things that we did last time was trying to find the definition of unemployment. And basically, we define it as individuals who are not financially independent and are not earning sufficiently. And this is a very broad definition where, it's really hard to get the statistics because there are various different definitions of unemployed. And sometimes the definitions are very, very favorable to the government because like they need to show the statistics. Sometimes they'll set the definition of unemployed to as low as like earning 28 rupees per day or something like that. And imagine earning 28 rupees per day living in a city or something. That's like kind of pretty crazy. I would suspect that you won't be able to afford even the basics. And that's why we haven't like looked too deep into the statistics of these things because like these vary greatly with regards to the definition. But regardless, I think we can all agree that there is a huge rate of unemployment given this definition where people are not earning sufficiently. And we also like came up with certain formulas, but it's really hard to put these in figures. I think we can still try. But the bigger discussion happened regarding the reasons for high unemployment. We talked about like late industrialization, historical reasons, late industrialization, and unqualified employee market, insufficient emphasis on vocational education, ineffective and irrelevant educational practices. I think this is one of the biggest things that repeatedly came up as one of the reasons why people are unemployed. And lack of employers. This is also a big deal because like the problem of unemployment is predominantly like a supply and demand issue. So you have a lot of employees, but not enough suppliers for the opportunities for employment. So there is a lot of demand, but not enough supply of employment opportunity. So for this, we need to address it by increasing the number of employers. And that means increasing the number of people who are entrepreneurs. And Indians do not grow up having sufficient room to exercise their agency and grow. And this is actually one of the reasons that came up as the reason for why there are not enough employers. So people are always like nurtured to have this mindset of being a good employee, like a highly qualified employee or a highly sought after employee, like or somebody who's got a like big deal of like big compensation. Alvin, I see that your hand's raised up. Can you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, this was a personal experience to me. My
Mhm.
college had a outreach program. So for the outreach program, we had to go to the rural areas and
Mhm.
see how was the development in the rural areas. What happened was very much surprising to me. It totally changed my mind. Like when I went to the rural area, I went and seen around area, and I saw many people, many youngsters who got degrees at their college, like bachelors and masters. So they got the degrees, but they are like lost their interest in going to the job at all. They have the qualification for going to the job, but they feel like they don't need to go to job because they are dependent on the parents or something like that, or they had lost their total motivation. So I want to address this also in the session. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that is something that even I have seen. Um, but that's also a good point that there are certain people who are just not motivated in life, right? They don't have sufficient. I think that I don't know if that is like large enough as a problem because every society has that, right? There are people who just like do not have the motivation. I think even I don't know if you guys know this, but in China, right, there is a huge problem. They've even like named this phenomenon where people are just like giving up on wanting to do any kind of jobs because like they feel like they're underappreciated at work. There was like a bunch of documentaries about this as well. Payal, yeah, go ahead.
I would like to add, like, are we preparing our children for the current jobs or future jobs? Because the jobs in future are going to evolve. So what happens, like, we prepare for something in current scenario. As for example, there is a book called Humans Need Not Matter. With automation, a lot of jobs would evolve. So that difference of skills is there, what employer is expecting and what the education system is providing. So that is again increasing the employment, wherein they have the will to do it, but they do not have the enough skills to do it. Why? Because we prepared them for the current scenario and not taking into account the changing scenario. For example, in
Yeah,
New Zealand, they do have a website wherein they give an entire projection of the expected jobs to be expected in different areas, the number of, not as a number, but approximate number of jobs that would be expected in a certain area. So we need to really see the evolving scenario, and then we have to give the youngsters a overview of these kind of jobs would be there by the time you are a graduate or something, and then prepare our youngsters according to those needed skill sets.
yeah, yeah. That's a great point. I mean, that's one of the things that I told you, right? Repeatedly came up, and it's what you've just stated is a subset of this ineffective and irrelevant educational practices. Um, okay, so we've added us all these points, and I've just basically broadly categorized these things. I mean, there are some things that there are historical explanations, but not something that we can fix because like, these things happened in the past. So I really wanted to focus on things that we can do to fix this issue. And then measures, I guess, one of the things that came up was the industrial jobs and manufacturing, because an emphasis on that kind of like really creates a large, job market base. Because one of the things that you can see in that has changed in China is that there's been a lot of like manufacturing jobs, and that is something that you don't need a lot of education for. But as long as you have sufficient training, you can basically like train a large number of people to be effective at that job. And then entrepreneurship as employment and employment via entrepreneurship. So people who are entrepreneurs, they are self-employed. And the other thing is that they also employ other people. So even if you convert one person, like 1 out of 10 people who are in the unemployed base, you're actually solving up to 50% of the issue. So one per 10 person is like solving 50% issue because this one person, they're taking themselves out of the unemployment pool, and also they are probably employing at least one or two people. So at least a third of the market is coming out of the unemployed market because of people who are entrepreneurs. And obviously it depends on the size of their operations as to like how many people they do employ. But as long as you have like a sufficient number of entrepreneurs in the unemployment pool looking at entrepreneurship as a form of employment, you're actually solving more than just their own unemployment. So this is one of the things that we're actually looking at as a key measure that we can do, because it's very effective, and also it contributes to the economy of the nation. And refine the education practice that empowers children to become valuable members of society. Target 15 to 22-year-old kids to train them as interns at startups or help them build their own businesses. So this is one of the things that we came up as an idea for fixing this issue. Build a startup communities where youngsters can get exposure and learn to aspire to be entrepreneurs themselves. Because one of the things about being entrepreneurs is that you want them to be first inspired. You don't get an entrepreneur out of like training them or educating them, but you start with just the inspiration for them to want to be that. And then that's where entrepreneurs are born. They're inspired by other stories, and they're inspired by certain things that they see, and they want to be part of that that process of creating those things. And creating regional micro hubs that focus on creating room for public discourse and exchange of knowledge and wisdom for strengthen the startup ecosystem. Actually, all of these things we discussed as a matter of like the startup culture, or the creating that entrepreneurial mindset in the population. Um, And I think one of the things that we did discuss last time was that I actually am running a community called the Startup Club. So the debate club is one community, and then there's something else called the Startup Club, which I've been running for the past year and a half. And one of the things that we're trying to do now with that community is that we want to build small micro hubs, and then like create a competitive environment among these micro hubs. So what we're doing is basically like approaching college campuses, and we're setting up like a group of like an entrepreneurial mindset, people with entrepreneurial mindset, or people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs, and with creating a small community of support structure where they can come and like engage with them socially, and also like bring in people from the outside to give talks, or like conduct events and things like that, and also like create opportunities for them to express their ideas or pitch their ideas, solve problems, and get collaboration from other members of the community. So we're doing something like that, and actually, I would love to discuss that as a way to like enhance the entrepreneurship in the youngsters. Because I think even as a country, I think you can solve a lot of these problems if you like inspire them to be builders rather than passive employees who are working under somebody else. So this is the outline of what we did just now, and I think the next discussion is regarding how to raise a large number of entrepreneurs. I see that people are posting the chat. Okay, how to raise a large number of entrepreneurs? I think, like I said, I think one of the things is building hyper local communities and letting them compete. Actually, I don't know if any of you know this, but like there's a lot of like initiatives by the government across various states, like in various states as well as the central government. They're creating incentives for people who want to be startups. I see a lot of support from the government actually. And we can also like create knowledge ecosystems where experienced entrepreneurs routinely guide young aspiring entrepreneurs. Create that high frequency exchange of knowledge across the tiers of entrepreneurs. Yeah, Payal, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to this that you said that build awareness. So there is a lot of unawareness in terms of the policies that are being extended by the government. So when they are young now, with the advent of internet, it's different, right? There's a lot of access, but still the clarity on what is the right policy for me, in which category I would fall, that kind of a policy guidance is really, really important. And secondly, the challenges which a startup usually faces is what I feel is licensing would be one another thing that we should be working on. One is policy awareness among young which the startup support ecosystem, as you said. Support, what is the support structure being provided by the central government and the respective state governments? And secondly, provide some licensing, if we can do that.
What is licensing?
Licensing as in networking,
Liaison. Okay. Okay.
liaising. I might be pronouncing it incorrectly. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So that is what I feel, that these are the two critical things that youngsters struggle with.
That's true. That's true. Actually, the past year and a half that I've been running this online community of entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, I've realized that a lot of people struggle with connecting or like knowing where to reach out. It's not just youngsters, like even people who are in their middle ages, they're trying to like, shift from being a professional to an entrepreneur. I think a lot of the times they don't even know the support system that exists. For example, incubators, or like knowing whom to reach out to for services. For example, legal services or like accountant services or other things. They just don't know where to start. And yeah, there is definitely like a gap in the knowledge ecosystem. I think we also have to create opportunities for physical interactions between various stakeholders and members of different levels of experience in the startup ecosystem. Because a lot of the times online interactions only can do so much. When you like be around people who are successful, or when you are looking at like how they interact and all these things, it can be more inspiring than just watching a video or something. And this is something that I've personally seen as well. I think physical interactions actually do matter a lot, and there is a certain openness to being around those those other members, like for example, other investors or successful entrepreneurs or mentors. I think it does matter a lot when you have physical opportunity to interact with them. Anything else that anybody would like to suggest as like things that we have to like focus on, like how do we actually achieve these things? So I'm just like listing out all the objectives for our basic like an action plan, and I'd like to know like if any of you would like to add something more to this.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, Raghav. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I think NEP 2020 was introduced, which was actually trying to mitigate this youth unemployment. So the Karnataka was the first state to implement the discipline-specific core courses as well as open elective courses. So, but it's going to take a lot of time for it to kind of spread through the entire country. But because this policy is already there, if we can actually take inputs from this NEP 2020 to actually kind of bring courses which are about ability enhancement or skill enhancement, that would be really amazing. So yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. Yeah.
Okay, let me just. By the way, can you guys see my other tab? I'm looking at the um, Bing Copilot. Are you guys seeing this?
Yes, absolutely good.
Okay. So I'm gonna maybe generate a summary of the NEP measures to mitigate the, because I'm not really sure as to what these measures are.
Okay, it's 2020, not 2022, but yeah.
Anyway, it gave me 2022.
So it's going to take at least 5 to 10 years for it to be implemented across the country. So
Yeah, but we don't have that big of a time because we are at the peak of our demographic dividend, as they call it, right?
right.
That we have so many youth, and if you have 10 years of these guys being unemployed and untrained, that's
Yeah,
actually
that's what I'm
whatever.
trying to
Yeah,
say. So before the government can do it, if we can just have a look at the entire policy and why and the things
yeah.
they have come up with. So there's actually proper strategy in the document which government kind of released.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
they
whatever these are, right? These are pretty much on the paper logical initiatives, and I don't know what exactly they're doing on the ground to make these things happen. Because I've seen a lot of people praise these NEP, but I still need to see some kind of ground initiative that's actually taking shape because of this policy. I don't know. I would like to know from others if you guys are more exposed to what's happening on the ground.
I think NEP is already scrapped from this year onwards.
Sorry, say that again.
NEP is already scrapped, like it's no longer implemented from this year.
Okay. And Buddha, you were going to say something. What was that?
yes, I just sent you a link for one of the PDFs which was released.
And what's this about NEP being wrapped in? Okay, in Karnataka itself.
Yeah, so they were unable to kind of implement it because it's not feasible. Especially the education minister had a lot of concerns with implementing it. But what I'm trying to say is the policy, the kind of outcomes they want to bring. If we can focus on bringing those outcomes in a strategy which could actually work for the existing situation we have. So that's what I meant. It's not that it's going to work. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I still want to understand what's actually happening with regards to this. But Sandeep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure about NEP, but I would like to add something about the incubators of my personal experience. So we had an incubator in my own hometown, which I actually started, I think, in 2018 or 2019, something like that. What I've experienced with the the incubator is the most
So
of the
Sandeep, before you
startups.
proceed, right? Can you
Yeah,
tell us which location, because that actually matters.
it's from Anantapur, Andhra Pradesh.
Okay.
It's 200 kilometers north of Bangalore.
Okay.
So that is I mean, I'm not saying about the entire incubation centers around the India, but it is my personal experience of the one of the incubation centers, and also another incubation center in Vijayawada. So they have no idea. These incubation centers have been given Niti Aayog has given them the incubator status, and they have given some enough funds, I think 5 or 10 CR per year, right? And what I have seen is most of this the grants is being spent on the staff that has been appointed for the incubator. And also they have, and most of on my startup, on my friend's startup, is one of they have taken two startup projects, and they have pitched it in New Delhi, and then they were able to show that even before getting the incubation, they have showed that they have incubated us, they have showcased our startups in New Delhi, and then they were able to get the incubator status for that. I mean, there were like a little bit of help from them in a different. We were able to recruit students from the university, but they haven't incubated us as such. But then they got the incubation, and then for the next six months to 1 year, what I've noticed is most of the companies that they tried to incubate, they were already in the market, like they were already in the system, and they're all self-made entrepreneurs, right? So it went on for like 2 or maybe like 1.5 2 years and 2.5 years, and then they started to group some university students, and they started tried to put up technology startups, and I myself tried to mentor like 2 to 3 startups, which actually I didn't actually believe in the vision, but I tried to give them some pointers or help when they needed. And the failure rate is very high, which where they try to incubate from the uh, budding stage. But whatever the startups that existed before, they're still continuing because they're self-made, right? So they themselves, they do not have any idea how to incubate a startup. Let's say even myself, I even wanted some help with the incubator, but they were not able to do it. They were happy to give me the thing is, they asked me to, okay, you whatever the help you needed, you would get it yourself, and whatever the expenses that might go into it, we will be able to bear that. And that is the story that is more or less the story with every incubator they have incubated. So
See, that
what
is the
I've
point
seen
of an
is,
incubator. I mean, I do have some things to do, but just finish what you're saying, and then I'll.
no, I think the incubator should be able to not just give money for the the startup. I think they have to inculcate, they have to understand what is the potential of the idea and how it will be able to get into the real world and will be able to do that. Apart from the entrepreneur, the capability of the entrepreneur, there are certain things that you need to understand if this is the right time, or it is the right market, it is the right target market you're going into. But they haven't done anything like that, and even today they are getting the grants from the Niti Aayog, and they have been using almost 70% of it for the staffing itself,
Now,
which I
that's
think
70% sounds like really sketchy. I think that is problematic. But I'll tell you, like, my expectation of what a incubator is
okay.
supposed to do. See, there are different. Obviously, not all incubators are of the same standard quality. There's a very
Yeah.
varying levels of reputation and competence of the people involved, of course. And
Yeah.
when it comes to like entrepreneurship, it's a sport. Okay, like it's like there are people with different sporting fitness and different levels of like accomplishments there, and you're only going to get as much as the people who are organizing it or running it, as much as experience that they have. Okay, so some incubators will have access to those kind of people as mentors, and some of the other incubators will have like different strengths. Like some people have, for example, I have connects with a couple of incubators, and there even there, like there are people who are kind of like clueless. They're more like managers or administrators. They don't really understand entrepreneurship to a great big extent, but they work there. Their whole job is to like coordinate and get you access to the resources that you require. So whether it is like materials or funding or expertise or mentorship or connects with people in the industry, they are happy to facilitate those things, but I'm not going there in expectation of them to guide me. I'm just like going there as a way to like get some materials and funding, and also like some mentorship. But that mentorship doesn't have to come from them. They can still facilitate the access to the kind of people who can mentor you, and it's your job to make the most out of it. I think that it's kind of like not fair. Like India's still not like a very mature startup ecosystem. You have to like learn to adjust your expectations and make the most out of what you're getting. I still think that the fact that these incubators exist and they are there at least to a moderate level of functionality is actually a pretty good deal. Like that you can actually make use of as an aspiring entrepreneur. Um, so I wouldn't complain too much about these things. I think the more important thing is that more people start to make use of it. I think the 70% figure is a red flag. Obviously, there is a scope for people to simply eat up that money without actually letting it go to the thing. But that is like a regulation issue. Niti Aayog has to make sure that it's regulating these kind of expenditures from the incubators that it's funding. But overall, I think we do have like a decent level of support structure, and I think I recently went to the startup TN event. It was a state government conducted event that happened for 2 days in Madurai a couple of weeks ago, and I saw a lot of people in the tier 2, tier 3 cities with successful businesses coming on board, and they had no clue when they started. Even the city people, at least they have something, but these village people, they didn't even know what accounts are or other things. But I saw like a lot of people who are succeeding despite those disadvantages, just because they had access to some or the other network of people, and they got to learn a few things, and then they just started building their own businesses. So I think that a lot of things are happening. It's just that we need to amplify the pace of these things and make sure that there is a higher rate of success, because a lot of them fail because they don't have sufficient level of expertise in converting an idea from 0 to 10, and then 10 to 100, and 100 to 1,000 or whatever. So I'm not really sure this Niti Aayog, I mean the NEP policy thing is something that we as citizens can do. I think it's reforming the education system is not a short-term initiative. It's a very long-term initiative, which is why I want to take
Right.
something that is more manageable and something that can be easily enforced in the upcoming few years to change things dramatically. I think we have to identify where our strength is and then apply that effectively. Sorry, Buddha, did you say something?
Okay, so this is my first session, so I was just thinking that we are not talking about the root causes and fixing the issue from the root cause. So yeah, please carry on. Yeah.
No, I think you never have to hesitate to share your mind. I think this is an open brainstorming session. We're all free to share our ideas. There's no right or wrong. Just different perspectives, and we sort of build our solution more robustly based on different perspectives. So feel free to share anything that you think.
Right.
But
So the way I think is usually most of the unemployment more than it's because it's not. I kind of see it in a way where people do not choose certain employment because there is no dignity of labor in the country, and if the dignity of labor has to change, the kind of educations we pick up from childhood has to change. Like it should not be very restricted to a particular stream or institute or whatever. So anything else beyond that is just considered not as a very good skill, and then we end up not taking it. So that's why I kind of try to always focus on changing the education system, or that's the only way. That's how I think. I have been thinking, but now I understand that you have a different approach. So yeah.
And I think a lot of the times people, when they're solutioning for things, they go for the ideal solution. They go for this expansive long-term solutioning. They try to be like perfectionists when trying to solve these problems, and I admire that. Actually, I like to do that too. But the thing is that there are situations where you have the luxury or the liberty or the privilege of focusing on the long term, and there are other times when you're facing a flood. You can't think of the long term, right? And you have to survive the crisis that is imminent. So
Okay.
that is kind of how I see this problem, because if you don't convert these large swaths of unemployed youth into productive members of the society in the next 5 years, you are looking at a crisis. Imagine a lot of unemployed youth who have a lot of energy in them, and they are frustrated by the economic the economic crisis that they're having to face because they don't have employment opportunities. That is a real threat to civil harmony. Okay, so we need to have a shorter life cycles of solutions. You can't like plant bunch of trees, because these trees are going to take like a couple of decades to give you shade. I'm speaking metaphorically, of course. So we need to look for immediate solutions. You have to have like short-term solutions, medium-term solutions, and long-term solutions. The education is something that I would consider to be a long-term solution. That is obviously the root cause, right? So obviously that's going to take like a few decades to mature as a solution. So we have to do that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but on top of that, we have to also do these other things where we're addressing the immediate crisis. That's why I was like focusing on the 15 to 22-year-olds. Obviously, the 22 to 25 or 27-year-old, they're also very important, but there is very little that we can do to bring a large amount of change to them. So, which is why I think we have to slice the problems into the ones that we can have an effective impact on. I think that is how effective brainstorming works. You focus on the things that you can do to mitigate the problem.
Right. So I just have one question here. Are we focusing on this age group of kids, or like in the entire country, or just suburbs or urban population?
So personally, I'm focusing on this on maybe the people of Tamil Nadu, because I live in Chennai, and this is something that I can do something about. Honestly, I'm using these brainstorming sessions as a way to plan out the initiatives of the startup club that I'm working on. The startup club is something, and let me show you something. So this is the website of the startup club, and we have a meetup group with like 5,000 people, and these are all like people who are looking to connect with other entrepreneurs or investors or other people of the startup ecosystem. And we conduct a lot of events. We conduct brainstorming sessions for the startup ecosystem and pitch workshops and interviews, and we allow startups to register themselves so that other people can come and contact them. And a lot of like activities. We have like weekly events as well. And one of the things that we recently did was to set up our social media page, where we are, where we are basically bringing together people and creating events. So we are, this is just something that we just started. We had our first event, maybe like a couple of weeks ago. So what we did was bring together people from the industry, and then we ask them to speak. Like some of these are entrepreneurs, some of these are VC folks, investment banking, and some are more experienced entrepreneurs. And we got them to interact with youngsters, and we had some really amazing socialization that happened with all these people. So what we ended up deciding was we're going to create chapters of these communities across various campuses. So we were at Sairam institutions in Chennai, and we established a chapter over there a couple of weeks ago. And there were also students from other colleges, and we're establishing chapters there as well. So we're just building like a small ecosystem of startup aspirants who can get the guidance they need, because a lot of them, they don't even have the basic facilities to do things. And some of them have some know-how, and we're using their expertise to sort of guide the others. For example, one of the people who attended was a student who was a second-year student, but he has his own 3D printing machine at home, and he likes to prototype and build things, and he's happy to help other entrepreneurs build their prototypes and things like that. And he's even happy to allow them to use his own 3D printing machine. So kind of this kind of community resource sharing is something that we are trying to achieve in these small spaces. And right now we also have a WhatsApp community. So we'll share the links to all these in the page soon. But we have this WhatsApp community where we have, for each chapter, they have an individual group, and they'll basically generate these clips. Maybe somebody from their startup community is talking about their idea or something, and then they're basically creating a 1 minute long pitch of their product, and we'll just post that in our Instagram, and that will be a source for people who are watching for young entrepreneurs to come and connect with them. So we're doing things like this to sort of like bring these people out and like inspire the other students, other youngsters. So I think one of the things that we want to do is like create a social media movement for youngsters to inspire other youngsters and get them the support that they need. So, I mean, I want to know from you guys, like, how do you feel about what we are trying to do with the startup club? Like, is it something that you think is viable solution, something that could be effective at solving this, or is it something that could use some more work? Pile? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to add, like, as you said, that you have a network of people who want to do their own startups or it'll kind of that thing, right? So, how about taking a perspective from the people who have startups or from the other end as to where they think the skill set is lacking?
What do you mean? Like, you're talking about like people who are more experienced to come and share their perspective on what the
I'm
youngsters are
talking about
lacking.
from the point of view of the entrepreneurs, as in from the company's
Yeah.
perspective, where is that there's a lack of skill?
Oh, you mean in the employees?
The employees, right? I'm talking about from the point of view of employers as to
Mhm.
where they think, because what I see is that there is a gap wherein what is required in the industry and what we are supplying. So there has to be a clear understanding of what skill set we are supplying, right? So I'm talking about from the point of view of the employers. We need to understand what kind of a skill set they are looking at,
See,
which is
I'm an
not being
employer, okay?
provided from the market.
See, I'm an employer. I employ people. I have a couple of startups. And I can tell you that, there is no single thing that is like, that is desirable. As far as like skill sets are concerned, the market is diverse. There is heterogeneous needs for different businesses. And, there are common sets of qualities that a lot of employers prefer, but this is not like secret knowledge. This is something that's out in the open. I don't think that it's going to do a lot of, it's going to revolutionize, but just by getting a bunch of entrepreneurs in and then asking them to share about, because it's very common knowledge as to what we actually desire. We want people with initiative, people with like self leadership skills, and people who are capable of learning things on their own, and people who are proactive and they're happy with their employment. That's when you have like a good employee. And obviously, there are like shortcomings in the kind of like market that we have. I mean, there have been studies that have established that 80% of the Indian graduates are unemployable, meaning that if you hire some of these people into your firm, they probably would do more damage than good because they're so incompetent. So obviously, now these are things that we've established already uh, in terms of the ineffective and irrelevant educational practices. They're just like sitting in classrooms, and they grow up sitting in classrooms, being told what to do, and they just do it without questioning. This is the only thing that we emphasize in our education system. So they are not in a position where they understand what's going on. They know how to like assess a situation. They know how to solve a problem or ask the right questions. None of these actual skills are given emphasis as they grow up. So the only people who are basically capable of being good employees are people that develop these skills on their own. And that's one of the reasons why we want to target these kids and then give them the opportunities to exercise the kind of things that would mature them. For example, like decision making things. So actually, let me list out these things, the things that are required in like highly qualified employees: ability to learn independently. This is one of the more super important things. I don't want to sit down and teach you one by one, like how to move your hand, how to do this, that. You have to know how to learn things independently. This is actually one of the most desirable qualities in an employee. And ability to make decisions independently without requiring micromanagement. Ability to be proactive. Um,
So, Raghav, are you
Mhm.
telling that the internship which the kids will be going through So there would be someone who will be monitoring them so that these abilities are kind of identified in them before they're actually involved in how to build their own business or to train them. Because kids can be from various backgrounds and from very different places, and even in the urban region, right? Like they might be lacking basic communication skills as well, or thinking ability. So it's just a random question in my mind right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, you know what, as long as people get sufficient experience in the real world, right, they will learn all these basics, the basic communication things and other things. It'll fix, or it'll be, they'll have the opportunity to fix these things if they have the experience of working in the real world environment. That is what is like missing. The real world, there is no better teacher than actual life itself. It's just that these people do not have access to those opportunities of, um, putting themselves in those situations. It's one of the reasons why I really like to emphasize on youngsters to start interning with startups, where they can actually get a first-hand experience of how a business runs, so that they can learn from first-hand observations and then learn to apply those. And these are things that are incentivized in the real world environment. These are not behaviors that are incentivized in the education system that we have. Actually, these things are things that would be punished. You are incentivized to be obedient without questioning. You don't have this space to make decisions in the education system, and you don't have to be proactive. You just have to walk in the line that they've drawn. So ability to be proactive and problem solving skills. So these are all things that come to my mind immediately. And
I have another question here.
yeah.
So we are trying to focus on unemployment here, right? And every student or every kid could be of a very different qualities or skill set, and it could be either brilliant or above average or average. So how are we going to tackle that problem if we are looking for these skills which are not which we do not see in every student, because these are the abilities of a person who prefers to think independently and make decisions, and who's already confident enough to do or to even communicate their ideas. So
No, that's a good point. Yeah, it's definitely true that not everybody is capable of these things. Actually, not everybody is capable of being leaders. Okay, some of these people are only destined for being a follower. And as harsh as that sounds, that is the reality. You can't change. You can't make somebody who is good at being one thing good at like something else. And not everybody has to be one thing. You can't have like entrepreneurs without people being out there who are capable of being good employees. Okay, so these are all skills that I would seek in somebody who is like a high level executive employee or something. Okay, so obviously all these things take time to develop if they don't have it already. So the way that this works is that one thing is for sure, that not everybody has a temperament for leadership. Some people don't have the temperament for leadership. They're more happy in being somebody else's associate, and they enforce things. They're not capable of like coming up with ideas. They don't enjoy it either. So they are happy to be the ones to execute ideas given by somebody else. So that is also like a valuable contribution to the entire life cycle of what is involved in building a product or creating a product or something like that. So it's not like everybody has to have this. It's just that these things definitely help no matter what level you're in. And the people who don't have these things, if they have like, some strengths, for example, this willingness to learn and like willingness to grow, even if they're not good at things, they can actually come and contribute and learn. And that's one of the reasons why like I emphasize on internships at a young age, because like, there are a lot of startups that do require people to come in and be a part of the team. And there are a lot of people who want that at a young enough age where they're not experienced, but they are happy to, like offer their time in learning and contributing to the company. So it's a win-win for both. So that's one of the reasons why I think it helps to have people work in internships when they're young, so that like they can learn from real world experience, contribute to a startup, and also like gain first-hand knowledge that is irreplaceable. No matter how many like hours of like classroom instruction you have, it won't compete with the effectiveness of like on the ground learning.
Right. So I have just one last question here. So now that we're talking here about how to raise entrepreneurs in the country, so that would actually bring up a lot of opportunities for employment. So how are we
Yeah.
going to bridge that gap between the students and entrepreneurs, or their ability to kind of join these startups? So
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I think it's time to like map out how this works. I think that'll give us some more clarity about how this will pan out. So I want to specifically plan out like how we're going to do this whole chapter thing. I think I saw some of your comments that this is a cool idea. I think yeah, thank you for that. So I'll just like go ahead and call this just like Startup Club X Blueprint. So we do have like a overarching, like global community. So we have a global virtual community, and from this you have like state level chapters. I mean, obviously we have country level chapters first. And then you have state level chapters. And then you have tier 1 city level chapters. And you also have tier 2 city level chapters. And you have tier 3 city level chapters. And inside of this, you have maybe like smaller communities. So this would be something like, for example, like a college campus, or maybe like for example, a road track club. This kind of like smaller communities can have their own like chapters. Like you can say regional community chapters. Okay, this is the structure of like how I envision. If you want to have a large number of micro hubs, these are all like what I would call as micro hubs of entrepreneurship, where you have like each of these regions, they have their own like resources. to facilitate, support structures for people in that ecosystem. Places of worship, aiming at promoting local MSMEs. Yes, there should be localized solutions. Places of worship, I don't know. Honestly, like chapter acquisition is something that happens, like voluntarily. For example, right? I'll tell you, like, how the chapters of the 2 existing colleges that we have partnered with are happening. What happened was I conducted this event in Sairam Engineering College, and we had like students from both Sairam Engineering College as well as like there was another college where a student came from a different place. And basically these students reached out to me after the event and they volunteered to be set up these chapters because I spoke about this during the event, and they were interested in creating these small communities in their own campuses. So I started working with them, and now they have their own communities, and I'm guiding them as to how to build that community. And now what's going to happen is that we will create like social media campaigns involving the content from these institutions, and we'll try to build a good rapport with these institutions because like in a way we are actually promoting their brand, and nobody says no to that. So we want to do that, and then once we create viral content on social media with the help of the students of these communities, then basically we will have the attention of other institutions that would also want to create their own chapters. So we are building a brand that has a certain visibility that everybody wants to now benefit from. So they'll create their own communities, and they'll basically start setting up their own support systems for their members, and that will help promote a certain dialogue between the various members of the startup aspirants in each of these regional hubs. And it's very important that we touch every level of this hierarchy, because like it is actually astonishing to see the level of thirst and hunger for these like opportunities that exist in rural areas and other smaller places, because there are people of talent even there is no hierarchy in terms of like intellect or caliber. From what I've seen, like even people in villages are very, very smart. So sometimes they just don't have the opportunity. Sometimes they have like more passion and more energy than some of the people who have more opportunities. So they actually compensate with that passion for the lack of opportunities, and they're able to be successful. But we need to make sure that these resources and connections and networks are accessible to people of every level. So that's the reason why we are going with this model of like micro hubs. Yeah. So this is the thing, and I want to like work on the flow for how we recruit and build these chapters. So chapter expansion strategy. So we'll conduct events, and events are just like one of the funnels for us to like gather people in here. The other funnel is social media posts. So through these, we are basically CTA for setting up local chapters. So CTA stands for call to action. So in the events and as well as the social media posts, we'll basically emphasize on the call to action to set up local chapters in their community. So we're looking for leaders, okay, like people who are proactively looking to establish a community in their region. CTA for setting up local chapters in the community, and then after you do this, you also have to like have routine or regular meetup with the admins of these chapters so that we exchange knowledge about how to expand their hub. Actually, one of the reasons why we think this is very valuable is that if you think about it, these hubs are actually like mini startups on their own. So when a young student, let's say 19 years old, 20 years old, is working on establishing their own chapter, and they're trying to create a certain environment for entrepreneurs to thrive, they understand the experience of what it takes to build a startup. It's because it is essentially like a startup. It's a low risk environment, because if you fail in setting up your hub, it's not like you're losing any money, because this is just like a more of a real world project that is like a non-profit entrepreneurship project. And you'll definitely learn a lot, and it's also like an opportunity for you to exercise your talent and showcase your talent, because every chapter will have a certain leadership. So this is something that I think I should probably mention here. So chapter structure, and I was thinking that each chapter should have certain minimum requirements. So for example, so each chapter has like a head of the president or something like that. Actually, this is one of the things that I've noticed is it's actually very effective in incentivizing people, giving them titles. So this is the structure of a community. So we have a president who is the most important person in the community. There needs to be somebody accountable for the entirety of that community. And then we have somebody who's like a treasurer, because like a hub does require resources to run these things. So whatever amount of money that they get, right, that's something that they can use that. And then we can also have somebody who's more of a outreach administrator, right? And then so these are people who are trying to recruit more members into their community or something like that. And then we also have people who are, I guess, the host. Yeah. I don't know if you guys think there's anything else that we need to bring in as like a member of the hub itself. Somebody is taking the initiative to set up the chapter, and that person is usually the president, and they will use their support to recruit these kind of people to build a core team. And then you have like members. Members are all people, community members. These are all like people who are benefiting. So do you guys think that we need something else on top of this, or do you think maybe I'm missing something here? So I think the process of building up a chapter involves regular meetups. Okay, first thing is
Raghav, are we kind of deviating from the subject of discussion right now? Because I think this could be discussed maybe next time.
Okay, what do you think would be essential, would be good for this session right now?
I mean, this the session is about discussing how the unemployment can be addressed, right?
Yeah.
And that's through startups. So
Yeah. So the reason why we are discussing this stuff is because, like, I told you, right, like that one of the core things that we have to solve is like creating a large number of entrepreneurs. And I guess like this is something that I see as a potent way to do that by creating these micro hubs. And I guess like we are getting into the details of these things, but I want to know, do you think that there's something else that you think would be more beneficial to discuss at this stage? Because I think we are attacking all of these solutions by looking at how we can actually establish this micro hub structure. But if you think there's something else that we can do, maybe we can explore that as well. I think last time somebody suggested this Less Wrong website where people can create like communities. You can also look into this. But I want to hear from you, Buddha. Like, what do you think should be discussed?
Right, I got to know about this session just today, like half an hour before this. So I would like to get into details on how we can bridge the gap between students and entrepreneurs to kind of address unemployment. So I would get back to you in the next session or maybe in the WhatsApp group. Yeah. So
yeah, that question, right? Actually, one of the reasons why I was like building this thing is to
I mean, I do understand this is all about organizing and structurizing things on how to build communities.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was thinking of, like, facilitating using these hubs is that like these hubs would basically bring in people who are community veterans, either as like, for example, MSME owners with several years of experience. You could have like people who are investors, people who are like institutional members.
Raghav, by the way, does there exist something similar to this?
Similar to what?
What we are doing right now?
Yeah, there are a lot of communities like this.
Okay, so the community already exists, but you want to build a new community, is it?
No, it's not that. It's a lot of communities that do exist, but they're all like, paid, or like, they're for corporate business networking and things like that. But for startup culture, right, I think there are very few people that are doing it at a large scale, bringing in people from various, like very early stages. I think that's something that is missing actually because often there is not enough financial incentive in getting involved with these like kind of like low level, inexperienced amateur level of people. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to change, because like this is a non-profit initiative. I'm not making anything out of it by doing this. Actually, it's probably going to cost us a lot of money to facilitate this, but it's worth it if you actually, because it is a business. Even if it's a non-profit initiative, it's actually a business, because like you need to make money. In every business solution, there is a fundamental problem of like raising capital to do the things that you want to do. And that is the same here as well. So each of these startup hubs will actually act as like independent firms where people can come and exercise their ability to execute and build things and all that. And again, community veterans, this is how you actually get involved with the local communities, because a lot of people who have experience, they like to interface with the people of their community, because a lot of people who know things, they genuinely want to help others. They want the opportunity to interact with people and teach them things. So this is actually like a great way to get these people involved and like exchange knowledge and facilitate this kind of like knowledge exchange between the ecosystem. So we're basically bringing together the members from the community, and a lot of the times, right, you don't need to bring in a Ratan Tata or like Ambani into a conversation for them to benefit from it. You can simply get somebody with like with the experience of like, let's say 5 to 10 years, who probably would not show up on an interview on NDT TV or something like that. But they're still important enough given the level of experience that they have. So you don't need to bring in these like giant people in there. You can still get people who are like in mid-range experience into the community, and that can itself have like a good amount of knowledge exchange happening.
Where do the lawyers and accountants fit in?
They're like service providers. So again, they're also part of the ecosystem. And one of the things is they have actually a lot of interest in interfacing with these early stage community, and they're also like come in to publicize their own services. For example, if I bring in a patent lawyer into one of these sessions and like make them like offer like a workshop on like how to create these patents and all this, then they are building like a potential customer base. So they're happy to do these things actually. I worked with some of these people, and they are happy to give workshops and things like this. And even if they charge some money, right? If you're making it a paid event where people are coming in to get that information, you can facilitate that. So that again is a part of like one of the challenges of this running this as a startup, right? You have to raise enough funds. Sometimes you can bring in sponsors and create this event. So this event as an entrepreneurship opportunity is something by itself is a very useful tool for teaching young people how to build businesses, how to execute things on the ground. So you have members, and then you have aspirants, and then you have community veterans, and you also have like early stage entrepreneurs. So bringing all these people together is something that we have to do to sort of like create fluid exchange of knowledge and experience and support from various members of the ecosystem. And so I would probably like put this as the core. So this is something that I would call the and then this is the community members.
I have one more question. Like, what about the knowledge itself? Like, one person, one startup can repeat something that somebody else is doing.
Okay, what about
like
it?
The technical knowledge itself, like whatever others have done all around the world. Like, when you do a PhD, you need to read the literature survey, right? You need to do a literature survey. That is whatever everybody else has done all around the world with respect to that subject. Something similar to that. If okay, research papers are available online for a fee, or the institution provides them. But what about those that companies are doing right now? See, for example, Microsoft could have patented something, or they may be doing something without even patenting it, and they may come up with that product way before I do. So whatever I do, it'll become a waste if they patent that technology before I do. Stuff like that. Problems arise.
Okay. So what?
So the knowledge base itself, where should that lie?
I don't understand. See, the problem you're describing is a universal problem.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, it doesn't matter whether you're a small startup or there is a big corporation or whatever. Whoever gets the idea first and they patent it, they have the right to pursue it and commercialize it. So that is a like constant race. It is a problem as much for you as somebody else who has the same idea, right? So you have to preserve your interests. These are all like things that you learn as you build your businesses, and you learn how to build. There's something called a moat. I don't know if you guys know this, but in a business, there is a concept called moat, MOAT. which is basically just, the word comes from how you see castles, like in old times, like castles used to have like a dugout around them where they fill with water. This is basically like a way to prevent invaders or like people from outside to invade the fort. So a moat is basically like a protection for your product or service. If you're a business, you have to have a moat. You have to have certain kind of like strategies in place where somebody else cannot simply like steal your idea and then like enforce it. So patenting is one of the moats, one of the strategies for preventing people from stealing your intellectual property. But there are other things, like for example, like if you build a kind of product that is not easy to replicate in a short span of time, you can basically enter the market, generate that lead, and then like you can basically like capitalize on it, because whatever you're doing is something that is not easy to replicate. That's actually one of the strategies of building a good business. So this kind of like knowledge you'll only understand when you like interact with people with more experience. So what you're describing is a very small subset of a larger set of problems that you may encounter as you build your business. And having access to mentorship, having access to people who can guide you is something that can be like a very fundamental tool for you to rely on.
Yeah,
Because there is
exactly.
no way that you'll know. You have to have like exposure to mentorship as you learn to deal with these things.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I know patenting is one of the things, but to know what all patents are there and stuff like that itself, I mean, if I want to start let's say an AI company for face recognition, maybe there are patents out there, and maybe somebody has already got the idea of whatever I thought of. So that general idea of I'll have the fear, right? If I want to step into something, maybe there are already people out there who are trying that, and I don't want to be in a saturated market. So that generic problem I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the solution is kind of like identical, where you are going to solve these problems much easier with the guidance of people who are more experienced than you. So we need to create the support structure so that like mentors are getting the pleasure of like helping young entrepreneurs, and they may like for example, if somebody with a lot of years of experience is coming in helping a college student do something, and if it turns out that that college student is successful, they will definitely like want to involve this person on a certain basis. And I've seen a lot of investors, they get like a certain percentage if they're if the person that they're mentoring is successful. So there is incentive there as well. It's not like they're doing it for charity. So these kind of arrangements can be made, so events, and then you have I think we can have like various kinds of events, networking events. We can also have these like panel discussions and workshops. I know that this is kind of like going in a different direction compared to like what the title suggests. Title of this brainstorming discussion suggests, right? But I do think that this is actually one of the things that we can do as citizens to actually change things, because like we can talk all about like refining the education system and all that, but we don't have the power to do that. And a lot of the terms like this takes a long time. So that's why I'm focusing on these kind of things that we can have a immediate impact on.
We can actually mention financial literacy as well, because I think that's one of the important things before.
Your voice broke off. Can you repeat that? You mentioned what?
So I think financial literacy should also be included here before, like, should be part of the networking. Like, first kind of teach financial literacy and why we need it in the country, then kind of build communication skills, then networking, then give them a stage to kind of talk about their ideas. So, yeah, I just thought of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we can have like kind of competitions as well as like skill workshops, informational and skill development workshops. And
skill development is the basic thing. I mean, it is obviously necessary.
Yeah, of course. So you have things like pitch contests, information skill development workshops, panel discussions, and networking events. networking, and maybe like you can call it like matchmaking events. Because a lot of people are looking for co-founders or early team for something they're working on. And a lot of the times, like, when you work with other people who are able to, like, delegate responsibilities and, come in with a diverse set of strengths, they often have, become more successful than somebody working by themselves. So these kind of events we can use. I'm not sure if I'm missing something out. We can also have, so events is just one thing. We can also have something like stories. Stories. The stories would be like, so aspiring entrepreneurs. Ideas. Entrepreneur stories. Mentor stories. I mean, like, these are all things that we can basically like ask the communities to generate and then, like, share with the rest of the community so that like they can inspire each other. Actually, one of the things that's really important about entrepreneurship is the stories. You hear people's stories and you get inspired by those things. So these are some things, and also, like, besides these, we need to also have like resources.
Raghav, I'll just deviate for a minute. I mean, in your brainstorming session, can you have some question answers like, topics itself, like, for example, why are Indian companies lagging behind foreign companies, like Flipkart is lagging behind Amazon or stuff like that? Tata is lagging behind Mercedes or something like that. I mean, one general topic. We can?
Yeah, we can have those. Yeah, we can have those. But, I think I personally have a bias towards solution-oriented discussions rather than just casual intellectual conversations. Because oftentimes,
if we understand the root problem, we can come up with solutions. Like, why are Indian companies lagging behind? If you can analyze that, only then you can come up with the solution, right? I mean,
that's the maybe the topic could be something like, for example, how to build successful IP in Indian brands. If that is the topic, right? What you're talking about could be one of the segments of the conversation where we're analyzing the problems. So what I'm saying is that we need to have a kind of topic that yields to like productive outcomes as an outcome of the discussion. So the topic that you proposed, like, why are Indian companies? So that's the solution of this. You're just like trying to identify the cause, and that's it. You're saying that just the identification of the cause itself is the outcome, but I'm saying that should be a milestone, not the finalized outcome.
No, I understand. That could be maybe a 10-minute topic or a 30-minute topic or whatever. The rest will come after that, is what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. If you select a topic, because I said, this is like a 4 sessions event. Like, each topic takes 4 sessions of brainstorming. So one of the sessions could be dedicated to discussing the root issue and identifying the problems. And some of the other ones would be like more about enforcing that, or like trying to figure out additional aspects of that topic.
Raghav, I have a question here, like random one. So when we talk about stories of people or entrepreneurs or early entrepreneurs. Like it kind of inspires a lot of people. I've been to startup events here in the city. I'm from Bangalore, but inspiration alone doesn't stay for a long time, right? So I think how do you think we can kind of develop a culture of discipline among these students or whoever is part of these startups to continue to have that discipline like in college or school? Are you getting my point? So inspiration is something which might stay only for a day or a 2 or a week when they hear that story, but how do we actually continue to motivate them and keep them dedicated to towards their goal or towards doing something? So that should be kind of part of this entire culture we are trying to build here, right? So it cannot be just about networking. So like there has to be some system where, yeah. So you got my question. So
Yeah, I got your question. See, I think that inspiration is not something to be discounted or taken lightly, because I mean, I see what you're saying, that about, like, inspiration is not the only thing. Obviously, it's not the only thing, but I would say it's a very fundamental thing, because that's where your desire comes from. Okay, like
yes,
a lot of
I'm
people
not saying it
who
should
do not
not be
have.
there.
No, I'm saying that desire is a fundamental thing. Without desire, if you keep equipping them with the skills, they will not pursue it.
Yes, I do
You have to, like,
understand
you
what
have
I'm
to
trying.
imbibe a certain thirst for success. When you establish that, right,
Right.
you have to basically stop them from succeeding, because they will be thirsty for success.
True.
So that's one of the reasons why I think that we have to inculcate a desire. Once you inculcate the desire, then you don't have to do a lot to, like, keep refueling them or pushing them. They'll do it on their own.
That I understand. I'm not saying we should not have the stories. That's a very good idea. We should have stories and we should keep having them once in a while so that people listen to them and get inspired. But I'm saying there should be something more than just inspiring people, right? So
Yeah,
like
that's why we have these
because
other things.
discipline, like what I see is we as Indians, we lack discipline, and I think that makes a lot of difference on something being successful or not successful. And so even though we do not, so that's a kind of attitude we have to build, and that's an attitude which cannot be taught very easily. So that's what I'm asking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. See, that falls under this, something like this, skill development workshop. Like, discipline is a skill. Okay, and if you think that that is what is required, maybe you would be proposing this event in your local community chapter. So you would go and say, like, let's have a workshop on, like, productivity, where we can inspire people to adopt certain practices that boost their productivity and their organization skills and all this, because these are all things that constitute skills. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you call discipline as a skill? Actually, it's a
It's a
human.
learned skill.
It's an attitude, I would say, as per like.
I don't know the psychological term, but maybe you're right. I
So
don't know.
under ethics, it comes under attitude. So attitude is something we develop with time through practice, and once we have a particular attitude towards something, we continue to keep it, and it becomes
See,
part of our.
attitude is different. Okay, attitude relates to perspective. Discipline is something. It's honestly just a skill. It's for example, learning to wake up on time. I mean, it does relate to attitude as well, because you can't, like, take attitude away from anything that you do. There is an intent. There's a motivation. All these things matter. But fundamentally, I think discipline comes under, like, your ability to handle yourself. That's a skill. Your ability to manage your own time, or be productive, or be effective in your strategy. These are all things that are skill based.
There are soft skills and there are technical skills.
I would say
Soft
these are
skills.
personal skills.
Yeah, these are personal skills. Okay.
I mean, it does constitute some amount of technicality as well. Like, for you to know how to measure various aspects of your behavior and other things, that does constitute a technical knowledge. Not everybody knows these things as to how to manage their time, how to measure their time, or how to delegate and organize their day schedules. All these things, it does benefit from having technical know-how. But But yeah, I think these are all things that can be taught. I mean, it happens more easily when you allow people to connect and learn from each other. Actually, this is one of the reasons why I think stories are very important, because like if you think that this is a very important topic, then you would basically ask somebody who's a veteran in the industry to come and speak about this. And from there itself, you get a perspective as to how people who are successful are doing it. And you may think that that's just a short-term thing, but actually it can change a lot of lives for people who are ready to receive that wisdom. You can't you can't force people to be prepared, but you can deliver to those people who are already prepared to receive the wisdom and apply it in their life. So yeah. By the way, it's 8:30. We try to keep it to like an 1 hour, hour and a half. So we're not experiencing any kind of fatigue in discussing.
Can you
these
please
things,
share this online or something in this diagram, if it is not confidential?
It's not confidential, but we'll see. I share the recording, but maybe I can just put the link to this in the recording itself. Yeah, let's see. But yeah, I want to maybe establish the agenda for the next 2 sessions. So I'm just gonna put it here. So we had our first session, and that was identifying causes for unemployment. And broad measures to enforce, honing in on the solutioning that.
Homing or honing? Homing, right?
Honing.
HOM.
Honing, it's like you're focusing on one thing.
Oh, okay.
Detailing the action plan for executing the solution, refinement and presentation, the proposal and review. So these are the broad agendas of each of the sessions. So we've completed a couple of sessions right now. So next session we'll start detailing the action plan for executing the solution. Basically, creating this, various hubs, and how do we recruit people, and how do we make it sustainable? How do we make sure that every player in this structure is incentivized to participate and give their fullest? So that involves aspects of making sure that everybody's incentives are emphasized. So let me just add that here. Detailing out the protocols, defining the incentives for each stakeholder of this micro hub infrastructure. Actually, a lot of people don't realize the importance of incentives. When you give the proper incentives, you don't have to coach them. They will start acting on their own interest. And making the whole thing sustainable and scalable. Okay. I think that kind of winds up on this. Any thoughts, closing thoughts from anybody?
I'm pretty new to all this, so yeah, I need to read about these things before I can say anything. So yeah.
Information regarding funding, where can the funding come from, like venture capital or something like that?
See, that all constitutes these informational events, okay, informational workshops and things like that. This is very standard. In most communities all have these kind of sessions where they interact with people who have financial knowledge, and they get those knowledge from them. So just workshops would do for things like this, Vaibhav, you've been really quiet. I would love to hear thoughts from people regarding the nature of the session, or if you have any feedback or something.
Yeah, I was listening to all the information and all the discussions so far. Like, so far, everything is good. I mean, I agree with the plan of action that we have currently. And yeah, I will think about it. And yeah, if I have any inputs, I will definitely give.
Yeah, and I would love to see you guys on the next session as well. Wednesday 7 p.m. next time.
Yeah.
Let's get back together and then like expand on this. Maybe we can spend some time to think about like what we can do in the meantime.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
night.
you,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you, Raghav.
Yeah.